Views and opinions expressed on this program are those of PEO Advisors.
All right, we are back. Another week in the studio. We've got Matt and Lindsay Cosci with MyPEO, breaking down the start of PEO. First time in the show ever.
Attention agents and business owners. Can you make heads or tails of workers' compensation? Very few people can. Listen to the pros, making agents and business owners smarter every Wednesday on Everything PEO.
Hello, 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 Tampa Bay listeners and beyond. You've got Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. I'm Evan Collett. Always a good Wednesday to get in the studio. I missed my loyal listeners last week. Had a little bit of traveling to do, and we won't even get into the traveling. We'll leave that alone. But there was a replay, and, well, I missed you guys dearly. And for those looking at us, we're still having some Facebook challenges. Just wanted to kind of put that out there. You can catch the live stream on LinkedIn and our YouTube channel. And, of course, you can always go to podcastradious.com, click on the Tampa Bay channel, and listen live up in the top right corner. We'll get you there. So I'm going to jump right into it. We've done a lot of shows over the last couple of years, PEOs of all sizes. Anything, we call it Everything PEO, but it's more like anything entrepreneur, whether it's funding, merchant, staffing, all of the above. But this week, we've got some of my dear, dear friends in the studio, Matt and Lindsay Cosci. Say hello, folks.
Hello. Thank you, Evan.
Thanks for having us. We're excited.
No, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Parent of 4 lovely ladies. I know you live up in another state, so thank you for making the journey and being a part of Everything PEO. Like I said, kind of a first for our show. We've brought on PEOs of all sizes. I know you folks are going through this journey for the first time. I believe your PEO opened up about 6 or 7 months ago. Is that right?
That's right. We were licensed in 2023, started really in March.
Yeah. And I've been hearing the stories, obviously, of all that has entailed. And so I'm really looking forward to kind of peeling that layer by layer. I think anyone that's been listening to the show, from a pedigree level, we understand that the PEO, we come in, we process your payroll. Everybody that gets a paycheck through the service is covered for workers' comp. And I think kind of that outside looking in, it's like, oh, it's just a payroll company set up. And I'm sure you're here to tell us that, beg to diff, I would imagine. But, you tell me, I think before we kind of lay that groundwork, let's get into your background a little bit, right? I know you've got about 20 years in the payroll space. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
So you've been down that entrepreneurial path yourself.
Yes. I have about 5 payroll businesses.
5 payroll businesses, yeah. So what made you take that jump? I mean, clearly 5 payroll businesses. You've had some success 20 years in. I don't think anybody stays in any industry 20 years if they're not finding some degree of success.
Well, I'll tell you what really prompted us to make the jump to the PEO industry was Kelly Anderson.
Oh.
He's been a great mentor and a great friend throughout the process, and I've worked with Kelly for about 15 years. He's seen me progress over the years through the payroll business and sending referrals. So he really got in my ear and said, you really need to take a serious look at this. Yeah,
well, you and I are in that boat. He's been smacking me in the back of the head for quite some time. I know we also share the same barber, so you get that smack in the head analogy. But Kelly's actually going to be on the show next week. He's been a great friend to the show, a great contributor to the show, and he always really brings, another level. He just has a way he looks at things.
He is definitely unique. He's a go-getter. He has a lot of charisma.
So what's this really look like? He's been telling you for quite some time, open your own PEO, get it going. I'm sure he almost looks at it from a C-suite type level. But now that you've kind of gotten in there and peeled the onion, what would you say the hardest thing's been to date? If you can even pinpoint it. Maybe I should ask Lindsay on this. What's been the hardest challenge? You guys are 7 months into your PEO now?
We actually launched January.
Okay.
Excuse me. Our first payroll run was the first week in January. He says March because that's when we decided to change softwares. So I would say as a complete outsider to this industry, I was not in payroll beforehand. I did 20 years in financial sales, not payroll sales. I did 10 years in banking. So outside looking in, coming into this industry, there's so many pieces. He was payroll and he had this idea like, oh, payroll, I know this. Okay, great. Yeah, I trust you. You know this. Let's go. And then it was like insurance, banking, process, that all of these pieces that we were like, oh, okay, yeah.
Compliance, right?
Compliance.
Fair Labor Standards Act, OSHA, right?
And it's like a little bit of a secret society that you guys have here. So you've heard about it a little bit, you know what it is, but until you get in it, you don't really know what the world is. But once you get into that secret society, everyone in this industry is really welcoming. I mean, you having us on the show, Kelly holding our hands through a lot of things. Everyone has been really welcoming now that we're part of the secret society with y'all.
You're in. You've got the key. Well, I would say that's a fair assessment. I have been doing the PEO space 22 years. I'll be 43 in February. It's basically all I've done my adult life. And I think every industry is littered with a little bit of that 80-20 rule, right? 20% of the folks are out there gobbling up 80% of the market share. I feel like this industry is probably more like 10-90. I really do. It is that little secret society. But if you have found your way into the right side of that percentage, everyone, for the most part, advocates for the business, wants to see the business thrive. For the most part, it's blessed all of us to some degree. But I have often thought of going down this path myself, and it's been a bit of a head scratcher for me, right? From the broker side of things, not taking on all of those liabilities versus swallowing all the liabilities, not just from a workers' comp standpoint, from an unemployment, from a payroll. Now, if someone bounces payroll on you, you've got to cover it. I mean, there's just an overwhelming amount of liability in actually owning your own PEO versus brokering. And so it's just walking that plank is just something to date we've never done. Now, we got very close pre-pandemic. It was something that we were just starting to kind of make the calls on and thought it was time. And by the good graces, we held off at the exact right time. And then, of course, we all know what happened with the pandemic. It was like a 3-year pause. And several of the PEOs that we operate with, thank God, did okay through that era. But certainly there was a couple that crumbled through that. We had one that literally focused on restaurants, and not just restaurants, franchise-based restaurants, which, in most states, the franchises were the last to open. And so it was a tough road. So Kelly's urging you to finally jump off this cliff. And I'm assuming you've gotten help from a lot of areas. You used Torben Madsen at the PEO law firm, is that correct?
We did, man. Torben's been a blessing to us. He really did hand walk us through the application process all the way to getting licensed. It's a tedious process. It really is.
Yeah, I've got a little bone to pick with Torben Madsen because I've been begging him to come on the show. We had the president of MyPEO come on over the summer, and that was kind of a great show for us. It was kind of weird because then the very next day I saw a LinkedIn alert that he's retiring at the end of the year. So I felt like that was good timing. But talk about the 80-20 rule or the 10-90 rule. There's really two attorneys in this space, Mike Miller and Torben Madsen, that have really been the catalyst for furthering this industry over the last 40 plus years. So I think in that condition, you're in good hands.
I mean, Torben is a real champion of the industry. He shows up in Tallahassee. He shows up in those hearings. He is really representing his clientele to the board and all of that. He really does champion, and he makes sure this industry stays afloat and stays. There's some barriers of entry of getting into the industry that Torben's worked to maybe try to dismantle a little bit. So you don't have 80 or 20% of the big boy PEOs gobbling up 80% of the business. And we all know when big boys own all the business, your customer service goes down, right?
You hit the nail on the head there.
So I think just not only holding our hands through this process, the way he really champions the PEO space in Tallahassee has been really refreshing to see that kind of representation.
Yeah, it's funny. There is a fair amount of market share being gobbled up in the PEO space. And, my partner, Eric Checkarellis, and I virtually do not work with any conglomerate-owned PEOs. All of our traction in this industry, and I feel like we've got a fair amount of it, is with privately owned, kind of that small to mid cap company where, the PEO is stable. They're going to be there today and yet tomorrow, but yet you still got the bat phone, right? You can get the owner on the phone. It still has that family touch, if you will. That's where we've had our most traction servicing our clients. Now, a couple of our books have been bought out, smaller books that we had and PEOs that we've tried here and there. And like Lindsay said, it goes okay for about 6-7 months. And then eventually they try to absorb that. And once they bring that into the parent company, that's when the fireworks begin. And I'm not going to name any names out there, but there's a large one that has gobbled up a lot of small to mid cap PEOs over the last 2 years. And now is when that transaction of taking it in-house finally happens. This is a true story. This just happened a couple weeks ago. They're using a payroll outsourcing conglomerate out of Colombia. And so the client calls us and says, hey, we're thinking about making a switch. We were just talking to our payroll tech and we wanted to exchange some PTO hours. And the payroll tech literally said, what's PTO?
Oh,
yeah. And so if you
Wrong answer.
Right. Well, I mean, we've got to be able to do two things fairly well, right? Run payroll and claims management from an unemployment side and a workers' comp side. And if we can't do those two things very well, the question of why be with the PEO comes up very quickly, right?
100%.
no, absolutely.
And so how have you navigated some of those waters? I mean, just software companies in general, I would imagine there's dozens and dozens. What's that been like for you?
So I will tell you, if you were going to look at starting a PEO and you get to the point where you have spoke with Torben or Mike or somebody that's a PEO attorney, and you get to the point that the software comes into play, you really want to look at about 3 or 4 different softwares and really tailor the one that fits to your liking. We did look at several softwares, and one that really just stuck out to us more than anything was Pro Software, and they've been really great to work with. They're up and coming new company. So
Yeah,
very pleased with them.
I've heard of them. I know they've got, I think, 24 PEOs or so.
They do.
But they've got the online platform and they've got the electronic onboarding and really kind of all those bells and whistles that you really need to have to compete with some of the big boys, like Lindsay says.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely. Their software is very, very robust. So if you're a small like us, more of a boutique PEO with select offerings, or you're one of the big boys who offers all of the things, you could use Pro Software. And that's what's really nice is it will scale with you.
Well,
that was a big reason we went with them.
Yeah. Well, and that's what, no matter where you start, right? Whether you do an assumption of an existing PEO and then build from there, or you start an employee day one, you've got to start somewhere, and the goal has got to be how can we scale, right? We've just got about 2 minutes before break. I wanted to get with this, Lindsay. So 20 years in the banking space. All right. And like I said, we've had a lot of folks come through here, whether they're merchant, banking, funding options, kind of all of the above. What's that overlap been? Because I know in the PEO space, there is a fair amount of banking that has to take place. How has that been a parallel line for you, or really it hasn't, and it's been a whole new thing? What's that look like for you?
So it's really funny that you brought that up because you guys have been talking about so much about the PEO and nobody mentioned banking. And then that was actually the piece that was most missing and how I ended up part of my PEO company is I do have 10 years in retail banking and nobody talks about that. So when somebody decides to open a PEO, there's a very big gap for them.
Sure.
And Matt was lucky enough that he happened to be married to a banker. So he could just reel me right in.
Yeah.
And filled in a lot of the gaps for him around that piece.
Yeah,
it's barrier of entry.
It's huge, right? I mean, and from what I've been told from the Torbins and the Kellys of the world is that there's a bit of a disconnect between banking and PEO, whether it's collateralization of the monies in and out. And Kelly's had a bit of a leg up on his journey. Obviously, marrying Kip Higgins, and her father, I believe, was an IRS agent, and so. Matt, Kelly, I mean, geez, I guess I just didn't marry the right one.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Well, stick around, folks. We've got lots more coming back with Lindsay and Matt. We're going to get into MyPEO, what they do well, what they're doing different, and why you may want to consider them as your PEO in 2024.
Oh, nice. Very, very smooth.
Cool story. When the Pony Express was launched in April 1860, it reduced the time to get messages across the country from literally months to just 10 days. Riders would change horses every 10 miles, with each man traveling over 70 miles a day. To remain profitable, the cost to send a single letter was $5, or 250 times the price of a regular stamp. But in October 1861, after only 18 months of operation, the Pony Express was replaced by the first cross-country telegraph.
Now, there's a detail that's wrong in that story. Did you catch it? Because we did. At Integrity Home Solutions, we believe in getting every detail right, whether you can see it or not. When you have a plumbing emergency and you need a technician to respond quickly, timeliness can make all the difference. But as quickly as we might arrive to fix your toilet or your water heater, we still sweat the details and guarantee our work for a full 10 years. Details matter when you do a job with integrity. Visit homeofintegrity.com.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with things I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. Since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of the disease called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, straight lines seem wavy, like when looking at a door frame. For others, blurry or missing spots can make it hard to read or see loved ones' faces. Many have trouble seeing in low light, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you've been diagnosed with AMD and notice vision changes, don't wait. Talk to your eye doctor about GA
All right,
today.
we are back with Lindsay and
At
Matt with MyPEO.
GAWon'tWait.com. That's GAWon'tWait.com.
All right. We are back, just gabbing away over here off break. We've got Matt Lindsay Cosci with MyPEO Company in studio today, kind of going through all the do's and don'ts of starting their own PEO, kind of a first for our show. We've had PEOs of all levels in here, but we've never really kind of come in here and peeled it down at its infancy stages, so we're glad to do it. We've just got 3 more shows before we're going on winter break, so we will be posting live content and reels and all kinds of stuff that did make the show and the videos on a regular basis. Hopefully we can get our Facebook hack completed very soon. I know there's been a little less activity on that page, so for anyone listening and wondering why, now you know.
That's just crazy. I can't believe that happened, y'all.
Oh, it's terrible. Erin, our executive producer for the show, I mean, she literally was powering the show kind of as a splinter of her personal page, and 17 years of memories and anniversaries, and it's all lost. And you would think, being this multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, you know, that you would have a customer service line. And now I know that may sound silly, but you know, for those holy crap, what if moments, right? You know, and there's no one. And so you find something online, and if you report it 10 times, they'll pull it down. We've done that 3 times over, and we've gotten nowhere. It's really been a big pain.
It's a shame.
But a little regroup through the winter break. We'll have the Facebook live stream back up on our next session. But getting back into it with Lindsay and Matt. So I know we were talking about banking, right? Kind of your expertise.
Yeah. So the banking piece, I think almost anybody that I know that I've met, which is not a lot, which is why this is so exciting for me, because I am new to the industry. So more contacts has been more fun. Nobody wants to talk about banking, what that looks like, what the services are that you need. Like, what do you mean nacho files? What do you mean? Like, what does that mean? So I would say anyone who's looking to start a PEO needs to find a friend. Find a friend that worked in banking. Maybe it is your banker who is your friend, and really get an idea for what that looks like, because you can, it's a big risk, not only like your banking, your relationship, the products and processes that you use. If you're not using the right products, that can be a risk to you. And you can NSF, you can end up with ACHs coming back if you don't understand how that stuff works. You can also lose your ability to be able to do it if you don't know how that stuff works. So that would be my biggest recommendation, is find a friend.
Phone a friend. No, and I say this to my clients all the time, like, out of any tax out there, right? income tax, sales tax, property tax. They'll waive penalties and work with you on fines. But that Social Security tax, that FICA tax, the minute it gets in there, it is spent. So I can only imagine that if this isn't done, the reporting and certainly the turning over of the funds correctly, that in itself has got to be a very stringent process. Is that fair to say?
Oh, 100%. I think that was the biggest shock that Matt had, is how tick-tacky and exact it has to be. You can't get a stitch wrong.
Yeah.
So,
Background, and I was more sales than anything. So when I went to open up this PEO and we uncovered the banking and all the components, it really took me by shock on how sophisticated and how in depth all that on the back end works, because I've always been spoiled on the payroll side by hitting a button and everything happened. And so it was a rude awakening for me, unfortunately. Thank God I had Lindsay.
That's my favorite part. He's like, when I hit the button, I was done. And now he hits the button and now I step in. And I'm like, okay, like all the magic, I am the magic.
Right.
I'm the magic that you didn't know was happening.
Yes.
Step aside. Smart man. Smart man. Well, the PEO industry is a pretty big industry. I want to talk about MyPEO a little bit here, right? Because it's almost, and Lindsay's kind of used the term, right? The big boys out there. That said, all of the traction that I've ever made in this industry is with that smaller mid-cap PEO that knows their worth and knows how to service a client. So, this is a business talk radio station. We've got entrepreneurs all over the Tampa Bay area tuning in. If you could speak to them today, tell them a little bit about MyPEO, how you're setting yourselves apart from some of those big boys.
Interestingly enough, you said something before we went to break that really caught my attention with what you look at. And it is, you have a client that has a problem. The big boys, most of the time, you're on hold on an 800 number or something to that nature, where you just don't get that small, that small business feel, that small feel or family feel that you would get where you can call a smaller PEO to mid-sized PEO and actually get the owner on the phone. And I think that's one thing that really does set us apart, is my clients can sit there and, they can call me, they can call Lindsay, and we can take care of it right then and there. And they don't have to wait or hesitate.
Yeah, you're not, oh, here's your ticket number and we'll get that. You'll get an email when your ticket's been resolved. Or that's really when we started this, that was a conversation I had with Matt a lot. Like, if I'm going to leave my career and I'm going to come be part of this, I'm going to learn this new industry with you, I'm going to bring my experience to it. What are we doing differently? What is our niche? And it was really important to me, because I had worked for some big boys in my career, that we did have that hometown feel, that our clients have my cell phone number.
Yeah.
And they'll text me and be like, can you call me? When can you call me? I have a problem. And I love it. I can fix it for them. I get to be the hero. Like, who doesn't want to be the hero of someone's story? So I love it. It's great and that was really important to me that Matt kept that. And that was really our angle.
Yeah. Are you guys delivering any payroll yourselves?
Oh, I show up with a smile. What are you talking about?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. When reindeer ears on next week, it's going to be great.
Funny enough, we have clients that are 3.5 hours away that we personally deliver the payroll to. And actually, funny, and we say this, we bring the printer and the stuffer with us in the Denali, and we'll run their payroll right outside of their location.
I mean, they miss an employee.
It's
You don't
payroll
want
on
to
the
show
go,
up.
man.
Well, I mean, and for me, it was my idea, because I felt so bad. You'd show up and the owner would be like, oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you to pay John Doe. Who wants to show up with everybody else's paycheck but John? So I'm like, give me a minute. I'll be right back. Run out to my car. Luckily enough, I've got a 120. I can plug right into it, print that check, hand it over. And come on, you could be the hero.
You're blowing my mind right now. It's bringing me back.
It's a little different.
Back when my third year in the business, I moved down to Delray Beach, right? That was kind of where my mentor was. And I was doing okay, right, in the biz, but I was on the golf league and the dart league and the bowling league, and, it was Bucks games. So anyways, I kind of removed myself. I moved down to Delray Beach, which was about a 3.5 hour drive. And then my dad lived in Ponte Vedra, so I could just shoot 95 north when I'm on that side of the coast. And that was about 3.5 hour north. And then from my dad's home, so I had this little 3.5 hour each way triangle going. and I would just go down there for a couple weeks, and my dad for a couple weeks, go home for a couple weeks. And so I had this box in my trunk that literally printer, I could do a full onboard, right? FedEx, labels, right? Highlighter package, Post-it notes. Like I could do a submission, print an enrollment, or be ready to drop off. And this box was like my life for 5 years, easy. And I really felt like in-person wins the race. I felt like, especially the first year or two growing the business with Eric, my goal was to drive to every appointment, because I know if you put me in front of these folks, I will win more than I won't. And I literally 3 years straight put over 50,000 miles a year on my car. But at the same time, it catapulted this, our business to where it is today. And operating a PEO, especially in the beginning, I mean, I believe Kelly Anderson was dropping off payrolls till just a few years ago. So I had a feeling you may be, but that personal touch is so different, right? You call in to a Paychex or an ADP, and you're on an auto dialer, and it's what's your client number, and you're reporting payroll to a different tech each week. And I don't mean to call those businesses out, but that's the mothership versus, however you want to metaphorically. But I'm happy for you guys. I'm glad to see in just a year's time you've been able to leave Big Brother Banking, right, and are on full time at MyPEO. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I am. You hit that submit button on payroll, and all the magic you guys are used to not seeing.
She's an incorrect owner.
Well, you're listening to Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. In studio today, Matt and Lindsay Cosci with MyPEO Company, going through all the ups and downs and everything in the middle on starting a PEO. So let me ask you this. At basically 12 months in, are you at the point where you have found your niche, or is it just, you're leaning towards doing well in hospitality and a few industries? What's that look like at 12 months in?
Well, I really think our geographic location, we're hospitality driven, in the Gulf Coast there, a lot of restaurants, a lot of hotels. So that's basically all we have in our book for right now. But I definitely would love to look and think a little bit bigger along those lines,
We've talked about what 2024 is going to bring for us, and what we may need to add to our offerings to attract maybe a more balanced book of business. We'll never get away from that hospitality niche. Matt has been phenomenal in that space for 20 years. I really just enjoy the space. I enjoy the people who own those businesses. I enjoy it's a great business to be in, and even that we're just a periphery of it. But yeah, we've got some ideas for 2024 on how maybe we balance our business a little bit more and bring in some how do I say
diversification?
More professional.
Say white collar businesses, yeah. But I'll never get away from the hospitality. The business owners in hospitality are the best. They really are.
It is. It's funny when, and I think it was 07, 08 when the housing market collapse came, and I was just heavy on blue collar construction. And Eric and I kind of thought, well, what can we do next? What's that next pivot for us? And we led to trucking and towing operations. And although no industry is recession proof, I think our thought behind that was cars are always going to break down. Cars are always going to need to be towed somewhere, right? You're always going to have a mechanic shop swinging a wrench on it. And it was a good pivot for us. At one point, I want to say there's like 400 registered towers in the state of Florida. And at one point we had over 100 of them. I mean, we had penetrated the market very well. And it was at a time when the rates were a lot higher, right? Kind of a weird time to jump on this PEO train. The rates have gone down, they're down 78% over the last 18 years. And obviously there's this double-digit drop coming next year, although everyone is pretty certain that's the last one. Just how they pulled that whole thing off. I can get into that on the next segment, but I would put a little thought into that, right? I mean, I know right now it's just coming at you every direction. It's fun. It's awesome. Every victory is just like a high five and a hug. But some of those have done pretty well for us. Now, what I was going to say is, as the rates have gone down, though, it's gotten tougher to write. Right, at one point we had over 10 PEOs writing those industries. Now we're down to 3 or 4. There really is a few industries out there that are one carrier decision away from having no one writing them. and that's a slippery slope. And that's what the great things that PEO and private insurance kind of bring to the state, in my opinion, is the value of option.
Well, and that's what drives competitiveness ultimately, and innovation in this space, and lower prices and all of that is you've got to have competition.
So I know your background was in payroll, right? 20 years in payroll, you said?
That's correct.
And you've got several companies, and I'm sure tons of clients in there, hundreds of them in there.
Oh, yeah.
So how's the insurance shift for us? I know we were talking a little bit about this off air. Eric and I have angled our whole business under the distressed workers' comp approach. Going to that insurance agent and saying, hey, if you can't rate the workers' comp for whatever reason, let us put it into a PEO as that next best alternative. And I've had the PEO lady from Texas on here. She flew in from Houston, and she angles the whole business from benefits. Obviously, you can angle it through a payroll component as well, which I would assume that's kind of what you're leaning towards. How have you gotten through some of those hurdles? And
so I tell you, the insurance for me was brand new. Being in the payroll world, everybody did the insurance because most of my clients are 4 or more employees in Florida. So they had no choice. But it was something that I just really didn't pay too much attention to throughout the years until Kelly Anderson brought it to my attention. And he's really been instrumental. He got us in front of our carrier through Chris
and Carla, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they've done a fantastic job for us. But it's really something we're still learning on the insurance side. Just we do extreme due diligence when we write a client or uncover a prospect, and just try to keep things tight.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing is, obviously it's $1 million in coverage, right? Straight across the board. That's to keep it in line. And I would imagine kind of being heavy in hospitality, you're getting the slip and falls and the back pullouts.
The grease splashes, the
hot water burning.
All of those things. I will definitely say with his 20 years of experience, though, what you can run into new in the business is you can't write everything. You 100% can't write everything. Let's be real here. We can't. We just don't. We haven't been around long enough. But Matt has been in the industry so long that he has somebody who can. He will find a place for that client. So that's been nice. We still get to kind of have other options because he is so well networked in the industry for any clients that come to us or that he finds that maybe we can't take care of yet, but we will.
How have you built the payroll business to the levels that you've gotten it? Have you been the primary sales or?
Yeah. So we're kind of doing it organically, and we started off slowly and organically like we're doing the PEO, and it's just been me and my other partner, Greg Smith in Pensacola, Florida. He's done a stand-up job with me, and we've done it one client at a time, me and him being in front of each one of those clients. So
zero advertising budget.
Zero marketing.
They'll do the chili cook-off or sponsor a local team. But they're not out there dumping $100,000 in commercials or anything like that. They are out there shaking hands and kissing babies and earning business. And I'm going to be honest, as somebody who's been in the professional world in financial sales for 20 years, it's very rare when you see a professional who's literally working off referrals. And that is almost the point where they're at, where they've done such good work that their clients are their salesmen for them now. Yeah. It's great.
It's evolved that way.
Good for you. There's this in the world of reels and Facebook, there's this Mark Cuban reel that I always trip over. And I just adore it because he talks about how the big boys, if you will, get caught and they go down these rabbit holes of spending millions of dollars in some cases on R&D and branding and concept and websites and logo work and then the brick and mortar and where's it going to be, and they just forget that you don't have a business yet until you have clients. Mm-hmm. And Eric and I largely do it the same way. We have a very small marketing budget. Most of it really goes into this show, but in the sense of getting in front of insurance agents, that's the art for us. And I don't think there's any clickbait advertising that does that above the rest. I don't think there's any other than going out there and one door at a time saying, hey, we're in the same business. I can help you. Here's what we do good. Give us a shot. Yes, there's a lot like us out there, but there's only one PEO advisor. Right? and then from there, your actions have to speak louder than anything else. We've got one more segment coming back with Matt Lindsay. Stick around, folks.
Clear?
abcmouse.com/radio, sponsored by Age of Learning.
Hey, we're back. Thanks for sticking around today. Oh my goodness, we are back. Everything PEO on Podcast Radio US Tampa Bay. As the hour winds down, I told you it goes pretty fast, didn't I?
It did, absolutely.
Yeah, the big guy was nervous. Lindsay's like, "You better suck it up, boy. We're getting in there."
All head sweating.
Yeah, it's a little warm today in here, Shriner. I don't know what's going on with the AC, but all right. So we've kind of spanned the globe a little bit on your start, your background. I think it's only fair to kind of let's get into day to day a little bit. I think that even in my experience of looking at this path, it's literally like a fire hose of information just coming in daily on every side, right? Just when you think you figured it out on the employer side, then there's the employee side. Just when you think you figured that out, there's the banking and accounting. Right when you round out of that, you got to get through the insurance and the claims management and all that. So 12 months into this process, you guys are signing accounts. Sounds like you just got a great hotel deal.
We did.
What's a true day in the life of Lindsay and Matt look like these days?
You want to take this one since you're more the back end of the process?
So this is what I will tell you is the accounting, the process, the banking, that is the day of that is your life. Like that is such a big part of the business that nobody talks about. And I really cannot push that home enough. We just came from a conference in October,
Yes.
I think we went. And I was the only person talking about that stuff there. And I'm like, so y'all just winging it? Like, no one has a plan for this? Like, do you even know what bank products you have? So that's really the day in the life of me is I'm the banking, I'm the accounting, I'm tightening up the process. That is kind of where I live. And what my experience has been is that most PEO owners have a gap in their business around that piece. So internal control consulting is definitely someone you want to bring on to help you fill that piece and keep you in between the lines.
Yeah, I think even just as much in the banking space, even like CPAs in my experience, there's when kind of picking up that phone and trying to call around and find some to do my due diligence, back pre-pandemic, even that was a challenge.
Yeah, we did actually. We really struggled to find an accounting firm because we are small, right? So
Yeah.
I don't want to pay $500 an hour.
Just to
My
find someone in the
recommendation is
industry.
every services you need, talk to 3 people before you make a decision. We wasted the most amount of money of our startup in going with the wrong software at first, the wrong accounting firm at first, the wrong accounting software at first. 3C3 and every piece of your business, every vendor you have to touch, talk to 3 and then decide what the right fit is for you.
Mhm.
I can't. That's my biggest advice to anybody who's deciding that they're going to open a PEO. If they decide to after
Her
this
day's
show,
a little bit more
everybody might be
compact.
like, never mind.
She has a lot more on her plate. I'm just a yes guy. I go out there and try to, nail down the sale.
Are you still able to find that time already at this? I mean, I don't mean to call it infancy stages,
Right.
but in the grand scheme of it, you're rounding into your 1-year anniversary. Is there even that moment anymore?
I'll tell you, you have to be extremely organized and be ready for anything that could happen. If you have those 2 things and you're optimistic and you're open-minded, we do a lot of sales throughout the week. And then, like I said, Lindsay handles the bulk of the background work.
How long were you open before you had your first workers' comp claim?
It was spring break. We actually were on spring break with our children in 30A.
Oh boy.
And it was panic. Okay. And we are husband and wife. We don't have employer-employee boundaries, right? So we're like we're blaming each other for this employee who got hurt, like completely irrational, like all the things. And then you calm down, you dial it in, and you're like, this is part of the business. Like, this is what it is. Like, let's get them the care they need. Let's tighten up this process. But yes, so we started January, spring break, March, April. But yeah, we were literally at 38 with our kids.
It was total panic because it's so new to us that we were
that's
just
our
like, oh my goodness.
And like I said, most PEO owners, banking is their biggest gap, their biggest knowledge gap. Matt was lucky enough that wasn't his, but ours was the workers' comp.
Insurance.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
Our kids are like, if I have to hear MyPEO one more time in this house.
Well, they better get used to it.
Oh, yeah. We're employing them and go get that business degree, baby. Let's go. Come on.
Family business.
I got to ask, how did it turn out? Everything all right?
Yeah, everything actually, it was a trial by fire.
And it was the most minor claim. And
Normandy was great to work with. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normandy's a good carrier. I've heard.
It was actually Normandy who was like, yeah, y'all calm down. Take it down.
Yeah, they were the ones that were like, don't freak out.
Panic. We've already got it taken care of. And he's fine. And we're like, oh,
That's
okay.
awesome.
So we'll stop screaming now. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for letting us know.
It's like anything, right? It's like a big bite at the apple, and you hope and pray that you can stretch whatever 3, 6, 10, 12 months and hopefully go claim free. What about unemployment?
We got our second one while we were sitting here visiting you today.
Oh, so you've done pretty good on that then.
So we've done pretty good on that. Yes, I've reached out to a lot of my contacts in this industry, and besides Kelly Anderson, Jim Moran at American Staff Management, Jennifer Perry have really been fantastic with guiding me on all these extra things that could come up that you do not realize or are not aware of.
They've seen it all. Oh,
yeah. Well, you've got some good mentors.
You sit down with Jennifer for an hour, and you're like, what? That happened in real life? And she's like, oh yeah, it happened to me. And I'm like, whoa. Yeah, they've got stories. Yeah, all the stories.
I could dazzle you on some just nuts stories.
Stories, nightmares, whatever you want to call them.
It's the components too, man. It's the components of the PEO that you don't see. It's the new hire reporting that everybody talks about, but you don't. In the payroll world, that was all done through the software that we operate automatically. So we didn't have to go to this website. We didn't have to deal with it. The IRS, you have TPS all the time. You didn't have to report to the Department of Revenue. It was all built into the software that we had. And all these components hit you at one time, and you're trying to learn. And like I said, lucky enough, we had some great mentors to help us out.
Yeah, it's funny, you're an everyday business. You don't have to register them at all these sites. But if you take on a co-employment relationship, all of a sudden, right?
Mm-hmm.
Department of Revenue website.
And there's no, like I said, y'all are like a secret society. So there's no like how to do this. You don't know until you know. And when you know, it's typically a painful,
Yeah.
Lessons can be
Or
hard,
harsh lesson.
expensive. Lessons can be expensive. So only learn them once. Would be another recommendation. I really kind of think it's almost like a car when you think about it. Like you have an engine, you have a transmission, you have a powertrain, you've got your electrical system. All of those pieces are not operating at top. Your engine can be killing it. Absolutely. You get your oil changed every 3 months, all the things, but you trash your transmission because you're pulling something you're not supposed to be. Car's still not going to go. I don't care how well you treated that engine.
Sure.
So that's really kind of how I think of it, is you've got all of these pieces that you've got to have firing on all cylinders. And then magically the car goes when you turn the key.
Yeah. Well, for anyone listening out there and they've heard what they like to hear, I guess I should say, and want to hear more about you, get info, how can they reach you?
We're at mypeoco.com. So that's our website. Our socials are coming up in 2024. That's another part of expanding the business. We've got all the wheels on the road right now, and we feel really comfortable with it. So we're ready to scale up, diversify our clientele industries, and you'll start seeing us pop up on some socials, and I'll have them all linked to mypeoco.com.
mypeoco.com. Excellent. Yeah, it really does. Like I said, the Mark Cuban line, I think you've done a great job of actually going out and just finding revenue first, right? Because having the flashiest website isn't always the best. And yes, social media may be an unlimited Rolodex out there for many, many businesses. It doesn't necessarily translate as much in this business as you would think, at least in my experience. And I've tried to work social pretty hard. The show really has done the best for us because every week you've got a new topic. And when you get on there, and it's like all the PEO guys follow the PEO guys on LinkedIn and all,
Secret society.
The community, right?
Yeah.
And so
Special
how
handshake.
do you stick out from the pack, right? So new, fresh, weekly content, relevant content that seemed to work for us. Right.
Well, 100%. And it's like everyone's got a social media page. Everyone's got it cluttered with who. And so I didn't open socials or anything like that. What was I going to put on it? And then you're like, oh, well, once somebody navigates away, they never come back. So this is really exciting to have this content so I can have something that's worth navigating to.
Sure. Absolutely. You've done a great job with it. Honestly, you've got a natural microphone presence there. I got to tell you.
She's great, isn't she?
Banking, shows, microphones.
Man.
Yeah.
20 years in sales.
I'm going to have to step my game up, huh?
Well, yeah. And I think that's, yes, you want to scale the business, but at the same time, you keep that service level at a certain demand. I think for any PEO, MyPEO Co. would be proud to say, we're getting back to you within 24 hours. We're getting you quotes within 36 hours. We're having you bind ready in 48. And you hang your hat on those kind of timelines just by itself will set you apart in this industry. Going back to that same PEO that has been acquiring a lot of the small to mid-cap PEOs and then putting the payroll out of this Columbia, outsourcing shop. At the same time, I asked for a rate review on an account for 3 weeks.
Man.
Now, this is something I would call Kelly.
Well, it's because they had to call someone to ask what that meant. So,
right? Jokes are out. But in real time, this is something I get within 30 minutes.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so it's crippling to think that they're going to keep that book happy and
no, it's great for us. It's great for us. Okay.
It is.
All right. Keep that timeline at 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Mr. Big Boy. Your clients are low hanging fruit.
That's right. She's an animal, man. You haven't even seen the sales side of her yet.
Because it really is twofold. In the broker business or the PEO space, right? You have the clients, but you also have the brokers to massage. Right. Well, it works the same thing as the PEO. You've got the brokers, the agents, yes, but then you have the clients you've got to keep happy. Right. And so it's like, who's first? The guy that brings us business or the business that's already in hand.
Mhm.
And that's a conundrum that, some of the big boys kind of take for granted, at a certain level. And so I just feel like once they start bleeding off and the word's out, it snowballs.
Oh, absolutely.
So absolutely.
Definitely keep it service first above all else, right? And do it with a smile and a certain amount of grace. And then the energy will just gravitate towards it. It really will sell itself because it is a small community. And we always look for that next nice, hot, new, shiny PEO that's ready to go to the moon with us. So you guys really have done a great job. I really just want to say kudos to
Thank you.
not getting it launched, because that in itself, is tough, right? But surrounding yourself with the right mentors is the next big thing, right? You kind of are who you hang with.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, nobody is successful in this industry by themselves.
No.
Is one thing I have learned. Being new to this industry, it has been so fun to watch how the small, mid-sized guys come together to help each other. We had Kelly, we got Torben, we've got Jim and Jennifer over at ASM. Even our banking, they have a couple PEO clients, and so they really work. Smart Bank works hand in hand with me when I'm like, "Hey, can I do this?" And they're like, "Sure, let's see how we can get this process to work and still stay on the rails the way we're supposed to." So we've been really lucky, and that's been one of my favorite parts of this industry. Is everybody really does come together to help you be successful.
Yeah, they say like the production of a movie, right? Like how everyone flies in, the cast and the crew, and it's like, and then everyone's gone, right?
That's it.
But it's kind of, this works the same. I'm envisioning like everyone has to come together, like make magic,
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
kind of steer the ship from there. But to get it to there and to launch, so you just hit on something. So we just got a couple minutes left here in the show, but so even though you're in retail banking for 10 plus years, that ultimately was not the bank you went with?
That is not the bank we went with. They were not small business oriented. I wouldn't say friendly. I'm not going to say they weren't friendly. I'm going to say they were not small business oriented. At Smart Bank, I've got a contact that I can call, and she picks up the phone. And if she doesn't, she calls me back in 30 minutes.
It's really nice.
Just like we've all talked about, that customer service component. When I make a mistake, I make mistakes. And when you make a mistake in the banking side of this business, it is a panic. Okay. It is 100% a panic mode, and you've got to be able to have a panic button, have someone on the other side of it, like that red phone, pick up that red phone, have someone else pick up on the other side. And so when you're looking for your banking products, interview 3 banks.
All right. We got 60 seconds left for anybody that heard this show today and they're thinking about using a PEO in 2024. 60 seconds. Who's going to give me the close? Why MyPEO?
Go for it. Just like I said, we'll provide you a personal touch. It won't be a big boy touch. Man, it's just really, we treat our clients like my business partner has a slogan he says all the time: treat people how you want to be treated. He pounds it. He has it on the wall in the office. And I think that goes a long way. My PEO is going to treat you how you want to be treated, and you're going to get that personal touch from the owners.
Yep. There's a lot of them out there. There's plenty to choose from, but you want to know somewhere where it's kind of like the old Cheers lineup. We all know
Everybody knows your
That's
name.
right.
We're glad you came.
That's right.
And I'm glad you all took time out of your day to come in with us.
Thank you for having us. This was
We
fun.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. We just got a few shows left before we're going on winter break. Next week, Kelly Anderson, co-founder of Florida Resource Management, coming back in to do another lap. It's always a great hour. You know how the show ends. Love God. Appreciate your PEO. Be kind to your staff. And over on 167-hour break.
You've been listening to Everything PEO, where as another lesson comes to a close, another business gets smarter. Tune in next week.